Hi, I'm Lizzie, and today I'm going to show you set number 2 of our multifunctional dies. Now that means, of course, you can do so many different projects. So the first thing we're going to have a look at is this. Now this is the crescent clutch bag. So obviously you can see the shape of it has the zip in the top, really lovely and roomy inside. You can add a strap if you wish. So that's the first one. The second one is the mini bowling bag. That's super cute. Love that. So that's the second one you can make. And of course you can have pockets in there as well. And then the one we're actually going to make, just get the words right for you, it's the cosmetic bag, which is this one here. That's a lot of cosmetics, but actually it could be the bag that you take away on holiday with you. It's got pockets inside as well, a massive zip going all the way around. I mean, that's incredibly useful. I love the tassel just here, really cute. So you've got 3 gorgeous projects. Now you do get full written instructions. You obviously get this video tutorial for one of those bags. You can also see on the back that you have all the necessary information about the dies that are tucked inside. So don't forget, these are multimedia dies, so they're going to cut through multiple layers of fabric, which I'm going to show you in just a second. So you've got everything there. The dies come on a lovely plastic sheet that has sticky on, so that's lovely to pop them back on there and back in the pouch so you know exactly where they are. So the first thing we're going to do is some die cutting. So some of my pieces I've already die cut, so we can just speed this up a little bit, but I'm going to show you 1 or 2 that you might need to see. So the first thing we're going to do is the actual main shape itself. So it's this big die here. Actually, it goes that way for the cosmetic bag. And obviously you only get half a die. So with your fabric, and I've got the Be Happy fabric here, you're going to cut a piece of fabric that can double up, and then this fold here goes against the open side of that zip. So if I show you there, it'll all line up. Now, just where that sticky out bit there, that tab is there, that can just go on the edge of your fabric, and that's going to cut through all those layers. So my fabric is already stabilized. It's already got some wadding as well. It's a thin 80-20 wadding. You choose what you want to use. Now, you might want to do all these separately. So you cut your wadding out separately to the cotton and the stabilizer, but I thought just give it a go, see how we get on. So you might want to tape this down, so you know I use my low-tack tape. I've got pieces for the lining as well, but I'm going to definitely do those separately. Although this will cut through multiple layers, on this particular piece we've got 2 layers of cotton, 2 layers of stabilizer, and 2 layers of 80-20 wadding. That's quite a lot for this machine to go through. So you can see how I've actually laid my die over my fabric and just over the edge of the fold. Sometimes that little tiny 1 or 2 threads may not cut because of the pressure of the die going through the machine. Sometimes wriggles that die, flattens the fabric, and so pushes the fabric out a little bit. So it might be 1 or 2 threads. Now you may want to get a turntable, it certainly helps me. Ooh, you can hear that. So let's just take that from the plate. So there we are, it's cut it in 1 pass. How fabulous. And like I say, if you wanted to, you could give it a double cut if you feel that it's going to be tough going, especially if you're using something like cotton canvas, something like that. And now this will need a really good press because we've got that crease going down the centre, and also it may have wriggled the wadding inside, so I'll press that in a second. So then I'm going to do the lining. Now I separate my pieces. So I'm going to fold 1 piece first. Let's keep it the same way as we did before. So there's my fold going along there. And this is my second piece. And this is where, if you've got fat quarters, you could use a few fat quarters, especially for the lining, because it's only you that's going to see it. So again, pop the die over the top. I'll just use a little bit of tape just to hold that in place. And put that tab over the edge. And this is going to be easy for the Gemini to go through. Pop it through the machine, get all your plates lined up and pop it through. So we've got a few more bits of cutting to do. Like I said, I've already done some, but we can show you like the tassel, because there's a die in there that you can cut a tassel. That'd be lovely, won't it? Now I've put stabiliser on my fabric so it doesn't fray, but you might want to use faux leather, you might want to use felt. That's for the tassel. I'll just take my tape away. There we go. So I don't need that die anymore, we can pop that over there. So, oh, one little thread. There we go. Lovely. So that's my lining pieces cut. So that's both. Okay, we'll pop those over there. So with the tassel die it's a cutting edge all the way around 3 sides here. And this doesn't have a cutting edge. So you know you're safe to put your fabric over there that's folded and it's not going to cut. So that's what we're going to do. And I'll just take my ends over the end and then we're good to go. So like I say, I've stabilised mine. I'm just folding it in half and popping my tassel die over the top, making sure I cut the right bit. So the folded edge can go there. That's it, we've got it now. So my folded edge and the end of the die that doesn't have a cutting piece will go there. It does have one little cutting piece for a tassel, but that's not like the cutting edge of the whole die. So let's just pop that over the edge so you can see how that looks. We'll just run that through the machine. Because that's such a small die, you could place it at the top of your plates, pop it through and then reverse it. So just take that tape off. Oh, just one little piece caught there. Let's get it on this bit there. There we go. And then just pull that away from the die. Let's pop the die out of the way. And because it's stabilised, it'll want to cling to each other. So we just need to prise that apart with our fingernail. There we go. So there we are. There's your tassel cut. Isn't that fabulous? There we go. So that just needs to be rolled up. And you could pop a little bit of glue on there just to hold it in place. So just literally roll it up, right sides out. Let me try and do that so you can see what that looks like. There we go. Little bit of glue there just to hold that loose end. But there's our tassel cut. Got a rogue end there, it's tucked in. There it is, it's gone now. Okay, and then when we cut the band from this bit, then it will wrap round and make a really neat edge. So I'll pop that over there. So the last bit of cutting is the actual, it's the zip panel that goes around the top part of the bag. And so you've got this die here, which allows the cutting along here, across and down. So all you need to do is cut your fabric roughly to the width and size that you need. It tells you on the instructions the length, I think it's 22.25. So all we need to do is make sure we fold this correctly. So I always offer it up and then I fold it back on itself. I'm going to try and do it so you can see it. So I offer it up to the top. Now we know that's going to cut that part. So we don't want any of our layers folding up to go beyond that point because it'll cut it. But what we do want is for it to go just on that bottom little notch there. So let me I'm going to put this down. I'm going to fold it and then I'm going to show you. So let's just make sure that's lined up. And again, you can tape this so it holds it in place. So that second fold mustn't go over that cut edge at the top. So let's see what that looks like. I'm going to flip it over. So when the die lays on the fabric, and I'm going to put some tape on there to hold it. Can you see how that works? So all of this long piece of metal, that's going to cut the fabric. So on this part here, if I move this die away and keep it next to it, so it's going to cut this a bit across here, but underneath is my fold. And if we position that properly, then it won't get in the way of that cutting edge. And that's how we cut our perfect piece. So I'm going to put some tape on here to hold it down and hold it in place, and make sure that those ends are correctly positioned. Let's see, there we go. And this is where taping really does help. So when you look at it, that top edge is going to cut, but my folds, can you see, are just below that cutting line. And here they come just to where that tab is. So we'll get the perfect length. So there we are. So there's our lovely zip panel cut. So let's pop this die away. So one more to do. And that's the pockets. Now I've got my 4 pieces of fabric here, and ideally you're going to fold these all individually. So you're going to cut one and fold one, and lay them parallel over each other. So all those folds are sitting beautifully on top of each other. Otherwise your pockets end up different sizes. Not by much. And again, we're going to cut through all 8 layers. Why not? Just be aware of what fabric you're using. If you're using a cotton canvas, you might want to do one at a time. And again, there's my last one there. Happy with that. So my open edge of my die just pops over the edge of that fold. Again, I'm using tape because I don't want any of this to wriggle. I think we're okay with that. So you can see how that looks. Pop it in the machine. Just square off your plates, make sure they're all lined up, and pop it through the Gemini. Or any other die cutting machine you may have. See what I mean? Beautifully cut. It's just the tape. There we go. Get all my pieces of tape out of the way. Scrap. We'll pick that up later. So there's our pockets all cut, all 4 beautifully cut, ready to be put into the bag. And to be honest, like I said before, you know, on many videos, that you get a central crease when you put it through the Gemini, but actually that's really useful for lining up your pockets in this particular instance. You know exactly where the centre of those pockets are, which really helps. Right. So those are they. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put the zip in. So you need your stabilised main fabric, your outer fabric, and you need one of your lining pieces, like that. So we're going to do a sandwich, but we need to put the wadding in as well. You don't have to put the wadding in, it's just a suggestion from us. Makes it really super soft. So let's put those bits to one side. Okay, so I'm going to use my stick and spray, and I'm going to spray my wadding. I normally wouldn't do it up in the air. And that's going to go on my stabilised outer fabric. There we go. Beautiful. So our outer fabric is ready to go. It's stabilised, so you can use a nice sort of interfacing in there. Lightweight to medium weight, be fine, not too heavy. And then we've got our lining piece. So all we need is our zips on a roll. And we need quite a big piece. So we'll just move the sliders up. This is where zips on a roll really come into their own. So I'm going to go about 1 inch longer than my gusset, my zip panel. Make sure you've got a slider in the piece you're going to cut. And so what you're going to do now is you're going to do your sandwich. So we've got the right side of our lining facing me. So this isn't a plain fabric. It does have a little bit of a pattern going on, a bit of a silver pattern. So I know that's my right side. And then I'm going to put the right side of my zipper showing. In fact, I'm going to just pop that over there. And I'm going to move that slider way out of the way. I'm just going to make sure on the other end I've got plenty of room. Oh yeah, plenty. So it's the right side of my lining, the right side of my zipper, but the wrong side of my fabric facing me, or the right side down. So that's our sandwich. So right side, right side, right side facing down, or wrong side facing. Now what you might want to do is use your clips or your pins. So let me just get a few clips in, because this is a long piece of zippage. So I've got all sorts of colours here. And then all you're going to do is put those layers together. You could use pins if you want to. Just lie them all parallel. And did you know the flat side of the clip will just slide along the flat side of your mat? So the flat side here just slides in. Whereas if you turn it over the other way, it's curved and it doesn't quite have the same effect. So carry on right down the bottom. Just make sure all those edges are parallel to each other. Let's get this. So far, nothing too technical. Oops. And again, right down the bottom. There we go. Good. So now all we're going to do is we're going to stitch all along here. We're going to put the zipper foot, just move that along, the zipper foot on my machine, and then we're going to repeat it for the other side. Now with your slider out of the way, it makes it really easy. So we'll just do a back stitch just to start so it's nice and secure. Now I always hold my threads, that's a habit, but really on a modern machine you don't need to. So you're going through multiple layers here. So you're going through your lining, your zip tape, your fabric, your interfacing and your wadding. So lots of layers, so take your time. But if you've stuck them all down, like we used the stick and spray, I used an adhesive backed interlining, then interfacing, then you've got nothing to worry about. Just take your time. If you've got that needle down facility, it's a great time to use it. And also ironing now is your best friend, because you're going to iron these fabrics over so you can top stitch. And the great thing about the zipper foot is that you can get really close to the teeth of your zip. And then just take it all the way down. Now you will need to trim this zip, but because we've cut it a lot bigger, it means that I've got my zip slider out of the way, which is a real bonus. Back stitch just to hold. So if I show you now what that looks like. So if we take it up to the top where we started, let's trim those threads. So if I fold the top back, look how beautifully neat that is. And the lining gets folded back on that side. So that looks beautifully neat as well. And obviously that zipper can come forward. And then we need just to top stitch that down so it looks really neat. but I do think an iron now would be ideal. I'll just do the other side. So I'm going to put the other half on. So again, I'm just going to take that slider right out of the way. Bring my other pieces in. So we've got the outer and the lining. Just give the wadding a quick spray. You don't need a lot, it's great stuff. So just offer those up. And those have all been cut separately on my die cutting machine. There we go. Super. So we're going to do the same again. This time I'll start from the other end. And just be aware of your fabrics, top and bottom, that they're way out of the way. So right side of your lining facing you, the right side of your zip facing you, and the right side of your outer fabric facing down. So I will just clip that first little bit, but then I'm just going to do it freehand. And you might, like I say, you might want to press that first side first, but just be aware it's there, so you keep it out of the way. Well, not my piece I want to stitch. There we go. So just get all those layers going over top of each other. And again, use your quilting clips. Just do a little bit at a time. I'm probably stitching about 4 inches and then stopping, readjusting. Just take your time. It's not a race. Again, right side of my lining facing me, the right side of my zip facing me, and the wrong side of my outer fabric is facing me. Actually, it's the wadding. This is going to be such a useful bag. And it could be by the time you've got down to the bottom that some of this has moved. It's just the nature of it. That's why we like to use a walking foot, because it keeps all our layers together. But don't worry, you'll probably have to trim the zip a little bit anyway. So right down to the bottom. Back stitch. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Let me take my slider down. Looks a bit neater. So you've got a lot of fabric going on, a lot of layers. But, there we go. Now you can see how that looks. So there's your outer fabric with your zip. And if we flip it over, there's your lining fabric. So what it needs is a really good press. So I'm going to press it and I'm going to top stitch, and then we'll go on to the next bit. Right, so I have completed my zip panels, and you can see that I've top stitched all the way through both sides. So I literally just ironed them back, top stitched them, so you can see back and front is really nice and neat now, ready to put in our bag. So I'm really pleased about that. I've trimmed off the ends as well, so they're nice and neat. And like I said before, if you want to, you could stitch across there just to hold that zip together, or you could, if you're very careful, use a staple, but I think probably stitching is probably the best option in this instance. So both ends have been trimmed. Now, the next thing we need to do is to add our little zip panels here. So we've got 4 pieces. So I've got those 2 right sides together. And those I shall do now. So you're going to stitch these top and bottom. So across here, and turn through, and then they're going to be placed across here like that. And that just neatens up the bag when you open it. So I'm just going to bring my sewing machine in now. So right across top and bottom, and that's the long sides. So I've put my regular foot back on the machine, little back stitch. So I'm just going to go straight on to the next one. Little back stitch again. I didn't do on the other, but I should have done. So a little back stitch there. There we go. So just snip that thread that held those two together, trim my ends. So down the other side. Back stitch. I mean, these are going to be incorporated into other seams, so it's not imperative. It's just that we're going to turn these through. Little back stitch to start, and straight across. Okay. So just trim my threads, keep everything nice and neat. That's it. So I'm going to bring my ironing mat in. I'm just going to turn these through. And again, you can use a tool if you find that easier. Some hemostats I find incredibly useful. And this is just a tube, so you're just going to push the fabric out. Now this fabric hasn't been stabilised. And again, this one. There we go. That was much easier. So I'm just going to bring my iron in and give those a press. And again, just get those seams out. Give that a press. That's not very good there. Let's get that one out a bit more. There we go. Super. So we'll just bring some clips in. So with our zip panels here, these are just going to go on the end of the zips, so on the inside, and then literally just placed across here. So I'm just placing the zip barriers there, and it's about 1/2 inch from the raw edge of your zip, and I'm just literally going to pop a clip in just to hold those. Let's do it that way round. And I'm just going to make sure those raw edges meet. And again on this side here. And I'm going to stitch across here. It's like a stay stitch. You're holding that all in place. And then going to the other end. So again, line that up about 1/2 inch from that raw edge. Bring that in again. Just pop all those layers together. There we go. So now all I'm going to do is stitch across those 4 ends there. Let me just bring the other end in. And those are our zip barriers then in place. So now we're going to place our pockets onto our lining. But first of all, we need to stitch our pockets together so they're really nice and neat. So I've got 2 of my pieces there, right sides together. And all you're going to do is stitch along the top here, turn it and then top stitch. So all you need to know is that the curve of the bag follows the curve of the pocket. So this is the edge that you want to stitch across, which is the shorter of the 2, but it's that curve. So that's the one that you're going to stitch together. And then you're going to turn it, you're going to top stitch it. Let me show you on this one. This one's already been done. So that's been top stitched after it's been stitched together across here, turned, pressed, top stitched across, so it's really nice and neat. And there's our 2 pieces of fabric, and that's our pocket ready to go onto the lining. So let me just do this one for you. So again, about 1/4 inch seam allowance. Back stitch just to hold those fabrics together. Straight away across. Now because this is slightly curved, it's quite good to get your pressing mat in and give this a press. I'll just set that seam first, that always helps. Then just open it up, push that seam out, and then flip it. Match up all those edges. So the bottom edge, the sides. There we are. So now all we're going to do is top stitch along this edge here, just to neaten that all off. Okay. So that's our 2 pockets ready to go onto our lining pieces. So if we bring those lining pieces in now, we'll bring one in and I'll keep it so you can see it. So this is the top of our bag, don't forget, and this is the base of our bag. So our pocket goes along the base of your bag, okay? Now you could put your quilting clips in just to hold that together. And all you're going to do is stay stitch these pieces together. So you're going to start here or just beyond, and you're going to come down all the way along the bottom and up, and you're going to do that on both pieces. So if I bring the second piece in, so we've got right sides facing me here of both pieces. So just put your clip in to hold. Try and cut those loose threads off. Okay, so that's our second pocket. What you could do is, can you see the crease where we actually put it through the die cutting machine? So you can line this up, you can stitch along there, and you could make that into 2 pockets if you want to. I think I might do that, it's a good idea. I might do it on both. So this is just a stay stitch. This is just to put our pocket in place. Little back stitch just to hold that, so it keeps it all nice and neat. So this wants to be just a little bit less than 1/4 inch. Just make sure all those raw edges are lining up together. Have a quick peek underneath. And up the side. Again, a little back stitch just to hold. And while I'm there, I'm going to stitch the pocket in half. So I've got my crease line to follow. So I'm going up to the top, and instead of back stitching, I'm just going to come back on myself. And that's now given me 2 pockets. So if I show you what that looks like, just trim those threads. There we go. So I've stitched, let's turn it around so you can see. So I've stitched from here, from there, all the way around to there. And then I've started there, I've gone up and I've come down, and that makes a really nice neat finish. So I'm going to now stitch the second pocket on. Like I say, this is just a stay stitching because this is not part of your seams just yet. So just have a little peek at all your raw edges, make sure they're all lined up. Now I've got my stitch length on a 3 because then I can go a lot quicker for you. But you might want to keep yours on about a 2.5. So all the way around the curve, little back stitch, and you're done. So again, we'll just trim those threads, keep it neat. Not much to trim there. So this time I've kept the pocket as one, and this one I've got 2 pockets. So now we're ready for the next stage. So I'll just talk you through applying the tassel to your bag. So you remember right at the beginning of the video, we cut the tassel, and I can't help but fluffing it out. So all I've done is rolled that, and then you just pop a little bit of fabric glue on there, or even a little hand stitch. You're then getting your other piece, which is the strip, the stalk that goes on the end of the tassel. You're folding it in, you're making it nice and neat, top stitching it, and then you're just going to pop it between those layers. And hey presto, you've got a tassel with a strip, and that gets put into the seam of your bag. But I'm going to be a bit of a rebel. I'm not going to have a tassel on mine, but you'll be able to see on the sample if we show it later on. So I'll just pop that to one side. So now we've got the exciting part of putting the bag together. So the pieces that you'll need are the zip panels that you've made with the zip barriers on the lining side. You've then got the base. Now the base has been cut already with the dies, and it's got the interfacing and the wadding on as well. So it's soft, but it's got structure. And you also need the 2 outer bag pieces like that. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to stitch your base to your zip panel. So you're going to make a sort of a cylindrical shape really. So right sides together, you're just going to offer those up, and then you're just going to stitch a 1/4 inch across. I'll do the same for the other side as well. So that's what it will look like. Okay, I'll stitch it, then I'll show it to you. And if at any time you need to trim any of these pieces down, then please do that. Because with seam allowances, if you're not quite sticking to the 1/4 inch, it might change. So there's no harm in that at all. Just be careful when you go over the zip. Just be aware of your needle. And don't forget, you're going through lots of layers. So take your time. Keep it all lined up. And a back stitch just to hold. Right, so we've done the first one. Now I've paused there because I want to offer it up to my bag just to make sure that it's going to go all the way around okay. And if I need to trim this, I'll just take my threads off. So I've stitched the base to the zip panel like that. So what I want to do now is to offer my zip panel and my base up to my bag piece just to make sure it's all going to fit beautifully. So you could start from the base end, or I'm going to start actually from the end of the zip panel and the end of my bag. So don't forget that this is the top of your bag. The curve is the top of your bag and the straight is the bottom of your bag. So the base goes on this part here. So I'm just going to pop this on. So my raw edges are together, and I'm just going to follow it round. You can pop a clip or a pin in as you go, but I'm just going to offer it up to make sure it all sits nicely. So I might trim that back a little bit, and then I'm going to take my base along here. Let's have a look, and that's perfect. So I'm going to trim that end just a little bit. So I've already stitched that end together, but I'm just going to take it back a bit more. And you can trim just to make sure it's still a small seam. That's fine. I'll just get my scissors. And we'll just trim that back a little bit. You might want to use your old scissors going across that zip, but I never do. And then I'm just going to trim this back a little bit. In fact, I'm going to stitch that zip together. So just take your time. That's it. Lovely. So what you're going to do now is you're going to stitch this other end together. So you're joining up your pieces. So if you have a look at it now, you've got your zip panel going across the top, and that's the shape of the bag. And then you've got the base at the bottom there. So we're going to stitch that other end together. And because I've now stitched my zip in place, I don't need to worry about that. So again, just back stitch just to hold. Be careful as you go over that zip. Take your time. Back stitch again. Let's trim some of these threads. Okay. Lovely. So now what we're going to do is stitch right sides of your bag to the right side of your zip panel. So what you might want to do is find the center just to make sure that curve is absolutely perfect. If I turn that around, in fact, let's get the right side showing. If I turn that around, looks like a little cat house. You can see how that looks. So it's going to sit perfectly. So I'm going to start with the middle. So on the actual fabric of the bag, I'm just going to give it a little finger press and cut a notch, tiny, tiny notch. On the zip panel, I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm going to fold it in half. I'm putting my seams together, the seam with the base that I've made, both sides, bringing it right up, nice and tight. You can finger press. I'm just going to cut a notch. Let's just get those pieces out of the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to match those notches up now. So right sides together. There's my notch on my main bag. There's my notch just under there for my zip panels. So that, now I know that is absolutely right in the middle. You see now how that works? So what you can do is get your pins, get your clips, clip all this round or pin this all around, whichever's comfortable for you. And then we're going to stitch all the way around. Before I do the other side, I'm going to make sure I open my zip a little bit, just to make sure that I can turn that through. So I'm going to start in the middle because I know that's absolutely perfect. Again, about 1/4 inch. I'm just going to make my way around the side of the bag. And a walking foot now is perfect. Now, when I get so far, I'm going to now offer up my seams to the bag. So just mind your zip barriers as you come to them. So I'll just go down to where my seam is. I'm going to do a back stitch. I'm going to turn at this point, but I want it in full control. So I've taken that piece out. Now I'm just going to turn it, twist it, and attach my base to my zip, well, the base to the actual main body of the bag. So I'm going to start in that corner and work across. I'm going to trim that back just a little bit. So I'm just twisting my fabric and starting just on that seam line there. So once I've gone a little way, let's just move that. There we go. That's it. So now we're just going to go straight across the base and just make sure that all those seams line up. Now when you come to the end of that base, you might find that you need to trim that away, which is absolutely fine. So just coming up to that corner. So this time I'm going to pivot right on that seam there. So I've left my needle in. I'm just going to manoeuvre all my fabric around. I'm going to turn that corner, pop my foot down. So again, what you're going to do is ease all of this into your bag. Just try and keep to your 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then you're coming up to the top of the bag. So I've just flipped that over just to help me get through round this top corner here. I'm just easing that fabric around the curves. Like I say, you might want to offer the fabrics up, make sure they fit okay. But the needle down function is so useful in this situation because it's like having a third hand. It's holding it all in place for me. So there we are, come right down to the beginning again. So that's one side completed. It's looking really good. So if we have a look inside, we can see that's fitting absolutely beautifully. So now all I'm going to do is stitch the other side. Now don't forget to open up your zip, otherwise we won't be able to turn through. So now it's nice and neat, it's a good time to open that zip up. And you can see the zip barriers there sitting really nicely. So I'm just going to go away and stitch this other side. So I've now stitched the outer bag pieces to the zip panel, and this is what it's going to look like. Obviously that's inside out. So we're just going to pop that to one side because now we need to do the lining. So I'll pop that over there. So with your lining pieces, you've got two that have the pockets and you've got the bottom part of the gusset. So now you're going to stitch right sides together, one of the outer panels to the gusset, and then you're going to repeat on the other side. So that's what it'll look like. So now all we're going to do is right sides together with the right sides of our bag. So I'm just going to finger press that down. Now the right size of our bag is obviously inside, so pop the lining right sides in and just tuck it in. And all you're going to do now, let's have a look, make sure I get the right pieces. All you're going to do now is stitch right sides to right sides. So do you remember before we did the little notch at the top of our outer bag? Do the same with your lining, or because we've cut it on the die cutting machine, I can see where that should go. So you're going to stitch the lining now to the bag. So if I just show you quickly, then I'll go away and do it and show you what it looks like. So you're literally just going to pin or clip your lining to your zip panel. Let me just caught that little bit there. There we go. So it looks like that. So that's all your layers clipped together. And you're going to go all the way around. Make sure that zip is open, by the way. Take it right down. You're going to go all the way around to these ends. You're going to turn it through, and then you're going to neaten off those gusset pieces. You can either machine stitch that, or you can actually hand stitch it. It's entirely up to you. You could even glue. But that's then all completed, and your bag is then ready to use. So I'm just going to go away and do that bit of stitching. Catch me later. Okay, so I've stitched the lining to the curves. I've left my zip gusset part, the base part, I'm going to hand stitch that at the end. You can machine it if you want to. So if I open it up, you can see how that looks. Now don't forget to leave a turning gap in the base of your lining. So when you're stitching your pockets to your base, leave a bit of a turning gap. So inside here, you can see how that looks. Okay, so my turning gap is just underneath that pocket there. So you could actually stitch that down, hand stitch it, or you could glue it. It just needs just that last little bit of titivation. We've got the two pockets there either side and that one long pocket. You can see how those zip barriers work, so nothing gets caught up. But I think that looks really lovely, and that's now good to go. It's good for a good pressing, and then it's good to go to fill with all your toiletries. But I'm really happy with how that turned out. Really super in the Be Happy fabric as well. So I hope you have lots of fun making it.